Hello and welcome back to another lesson of the Logos and Letters. My name is Liam and we're going to be starting chapter 7 today, which I'm looking forward to, all about relation. I'm not going to talk too much about it, I'll let it speak for itself, but looking forward to getting stuck into a new topic, and it's all about relation, prosti, which is one of the supreme genera, the 10 categories, okay, of which this book is dedicated to, right? Categories, kategoriai. So without further ado, let's get stuck in. So prosti te ta toiauta legatai. So in this particular way, relation is said. Hossa auta haperestin heteron ainai legatai. So the very things, the exact things of being of another, it is said. So in a proper smooth English translation, we will say those particular things which are said themselves in relation to another thing. All right, so X is said in relation to Y, and an example of that is a half is said in relation to a double. Okay, half is said in relation to a double. So just by our mind alone, we know that if we said 2, we know that that's half of 4, or maybe double of 1. Okay, so things said in relation to another, or half of a shape and double of a shape, so on and so forth. So that's just one little example there, and that's a little example of relation. They're sort of well, literally relative. They have something that they're relating to. Okay, so I think that's covered it. So e hoposun alelos pros heteron, or this is a good one. In any way whatsoever related to another thing, or regarding another thing. Pros has a few different translations, so they're all related, of course, but a few different English words which can highlight their sense best. So things that are said in relation to another thing. Okay, that's a relation. So up and down are relations, or below and above, I should say. And let's get stuck into some examples. Hoyon to maisdon tu hoperestin heteru legatai. So the greater thing is said to in relation to exactly what it is greater than. All right. So if you said something that in a smooth translation, or just a idiomatic expression, if you said this guy is taller, you would then be relating that to something that is shorter. Okay, you're not just saying taller in a vacuum. You're not just saying that just by himself he's taller. You're not comparing it to anything else. That's ridiculous. Okay, you can say that one building is bigger than another building, and when you say bigger, you're thinking of something that is smaller. If you say this number is greater, you're thinking of a number that is smaller, so on and so forth. So these comparative words, all comparative words, speak of some relation between two or more things. Okay, two or more things. You might say that this man is holier than, or the holiest, and you're comparing it in a relation to all other men. Okay, so on and so forth. You can say that these people are higher than, or just higher than the rest. Okay, and they're on a superior elevation. Perhaps there's nobody in this top part here, and thus, because they've got more elevation, they are higher than all of these people here. These people are therefore lower. Okay, let's keep going. So hoposun alelos, if you're learning the Greek, so otherwise or otherly, And hoposun, I've sort of made that hard for you to read, haven't I? And hoposun is in any way or any way whatsoever. So you sort of combine them together for that translation there. Hoyon to maisdon tooth hopper restin heteru legatai. Dinos gar legatai maisdon. So of something in particular, it is said to be greater. Okay, it's not just greater in a vacuum. Perhaps a theologically minded person could just say, God is just greater, and that's fair enough. I'll let you have, you can have that on reasonable ground. But just in general, in our cosmos, in our universe, our everyday experiences and whatnot, it's said of something particular, all right? Of another thing here, of another thing, heteru, and tinos, of something in particular, okay? So that's why it's greater or lesser. Any other comparative word, okay? He's just given more so or greater, maisdon, in his particular example. Let's continue on. Kai to deplacion tu hopper restin heteru legatai. So the double, all right, something double is spoken of something else, okay, some very particular thing, some other very particular thing that it's double of. All right, it's not just double by itself, okay, with no other sort of relation whatsoever. It's double in relation to something in particular. So you can say he is double the height of another man. You can say he has double the wealth of another man. We're always comparing it with someone else. In this sort of sense, you can sort of see how the Stoics came about with their contemplation, their understanding of relation. Chapter 7 is incredibly connected to the idea of, many of the core ideas of the Stoics. Maybe I'll bring some of those up and some examples of that, but they do away with relation a lot, the Stoics. I don't want to turn this into a philosophy lesson, but I just know that right at the moment, the zeitgeist at the moment is people are very interested in Stoicism and their thoughts. So chapter 7 is the bedrock of a lot of their thought when it comes to that. And we'll see how that is the case. Some of my examples with wealth and height, and we could say strength, he's twice the strength of another man, are good examples. But let's continue on with the logic at hand. Okay. Distance can be double. And if you say double, what's the other half of that? What's the inverse of that we might think? We might think of the half. So if this man says to this woman, I have half the amount of cows that you have, she will know that he's only got one. Okay. She might say, well, you have twice the amount of sheep that I have. Okay. Maybe that's his sheep over there. And he will know by the number of sheep that he has, how many she has, okay? So it's related in that sense. It communicates back and forth. It's reciprocal in that sort of sense that if you give me this information, I will know that other piece of information. All right, and these relations are obviously understood by the intellect, okay, by reason, but let's make it really, really clear here that all these relations exist in a substance, or all the substances that it is related to. Let me say that again. So these things, yes, are understood by the mind, and it takes a reasoning mind usually to understand and uncover and connect the dots, so to speak. But they actually do exist in the substance. Okay, they're accidents. They're just. It's not like they don't exist at all. Okay, we have to give some explanation for how they exist in some way, not the same way as a substance exists, but they are an accident. Okay, not an accident in the modern sense of the word, but in the logical sense of the word, especially the way we studied it in chapter 5. Okay, so these things are things that exist uh, or have their participation, in existence via a substance. Okay, they come and go, they emit of degrees, and so on and so forth. So let's keep that in mind. They're not just movements of the intellect; they are quite real. All right, they exist objectively, and it's usually the case as well that if there was no intellect to understand them, they would still exist. They would still exist. So if there is a planet twice the size of Earth, and Earth is half the size of that planet, let's say even exactly, it is exactly half and exactly double, okay? If there were no intellects in the universe to understand that, no human being left alive to understand this, perhaps only animals out there are hardy insects and robust moss and all these other sorts of things that hardly have an intellect to speak of, it would still exist. That relation would still exist between those two planets, that indeed this one is half and this one is double. And every other sort of relation in that way would still exist because there are still substances which it exists in. It doesn't exist only because we can understand it. It exists as a part of the reality that we participate in, and then the intellect understands it. All right, so that's a lot to take in, but I thought I'd clarify this just to give it some more basis in reality. Let's do a couple more sentences and we'll wrap this up. So there's a comma here. Okay, so dinoscar, of something in particular. Dinoscar, deplacion legatai. All right, for of something in particular, it is the double. It is said to be double. Right? It's said to be double of something in particular. Hosautos de kai hossa ala toiauta. Right? And in this way, all right, in such a manner, and in all such cases of something else, we can say it is the same. So that's a really brutal sentence to put into English, but he's just saying, I've given you two examples, a double, and I've given, what was the other one? Greater. Okay, he's saying apply this logic to all other such cases of the same kind. Okay, and we've sort of done that, but what's another one that we can do? Well, I did heaps when I said of higher and wealthier and all those sorts of things, but we can also put it in the opposite, in the negative light. We can say something is weaker, we can say something is shorter, something it is uglier, something is more foolish, and so on and so forth. Okay, we're relating that to something that is has a greater capacity in those sorts of senses. So let's continue on with, we'll do one more sentence up to here. Esti dekai ta toyauta pros ton prosti hoyon hexis. Okay, so habit. Hexis is habit. Diathesis, disposition. Aesthesis, which is senses, perception, senses or perception. Episteme, which is like science, scientific knowledge, not science in the modern sense of the word, where it is data and experimentation, the scientific method, and lab coats, and people out, studying rocks and all those sorts of things that we immediately associate as stereotypes. We here, scientific knowledge is knowledge that can be proven through like logical deduction, through syllogism, through true premises and a conclusion that follows. Okay, so that sort of science. Okay, so it has axioms, it has first principles that you move from, and all these sorts of things. So it doesn't require data and lab coats and microscopes and things like that. It just requires and has flawless logic. Okay, wonderful logic that can get you to a true conclusion. That's the science that he's speaking about here. So aesthesis, episteme, and thesis, which is interestingly translated as attitude sometimes. Well, I've only seen it once, translated as attitude, and I sort of get it, but position is better. So we have disposition, habit, perception, so we can say like true knowledge, science, and position. And position is sort of like your intellectual position. You don't have this science yet, but you have a position. And that's where we get thesis from, right? We get the idea of thesis in for like PhD students and whatever. They write a thesis, and your thesis is like, I have a really strong idea and a great argument, but I haven't fully proven it yet, or it hasn't fully been proven. So it's related to theory as well, okay? And etymologically, they're related to theory. So these things are relations too. And if you remember back, I think I said it at the start of this chapter, there's so much in our daily life that's related to, well, relations. And these things, think about it, habits. Human beings are made of habits, whether they're positive or negative. We function of habits. There are some chaotic people who thrive without them, but they're rare, okay? And usually not too successful either from it, depending on their job, of course. But you've got hexis, so you've got these habits, positive and negative, virtues and vices. We have diathesis, dispositions, and that's everything in between. That can just be the temperature of your body sometimes. That can be your mood. All right, mood's a good way to put it. Your something that you give into as a temptation. Okay, all these sorts of things. Senses. I mean, we are creatures of the senses, and we're using them all the time. Right now, you can feel the temperature of your room, of your body. You can touch the object in front of you. You can touch your nose. You can, arrange your hair and all these sorts of things. These are the true things that you know and that you can prove without complicated apparatus. Okay, you don't need the James Webb telescope to prove something to someone, although you probably can use that as science. You've just got excellent reasoning and logic that you can give to explain something. And here's your thesis. It's all these other things. So if someone came up to you and said, hey, I believe that the earth is flat, that's their thesis. They don't really have any science or logic to back that up. Maybe they do, but that's just a thesis. Or they might say something else that's not really a conspiracy. They might just say, oh, I think there will be a third world war in the next decade based on this, and this. Okay, that's their thesis. Yeah, we'll leave it there. There's a lot in this short section. He started us off with some great examples of double and greater, to maisdon and to deplation, and we looked at some examples ourselves, and then he said, hey, apply this to everything else of the same kind. And then he's given us almost like a menu of things that compose our daily lives and our daily experiences and our most important experiences. And he said, hey, this is all the stuff that we've got to cover in this chapter because this is related to relations. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you can see where this is going and the practical utility of it. This is logic that applies for those biblical scholars out there to every case in the Bible that involves senses, dispositions, habits of all virtues and vices, or provable knowledge and all speculation. Okay, so yeah, I'll leave that there. As always, si semper fortis in opere tuo, and I'll see you next time.